The final patch.
Hey everybody, Riot Mort here, and it is time for the patch 14.7 rundown.
The
That's
last
the seventh
one.
patch of set 14, and this is the final competitive patch. This is the patch that the Tactician's Crown will be played on. This is the last patch that we take super seriously, trying to get the balance as perfect as we can.
Super seriously.
There'll be one more patch, which is 14.8, which is the for fun patch, where we get a little looser. But overall, this is sort of it. This is the competitive patch. Now, if we look at the last patch, definitely what happened was there were some buffs to both Vanguard and Exotech that gave them a lot of flat health. And that flat health makes the mid-game especially really painful. It makes it so that a lot of comps that can't handle that really high base health in the early game kind of get stomped out. And so the meta ended up being a little, actually, not even a little, I'm not going to sugarcoat. The meta ended up narrower than we would have liked for 14.6. And so for this patch, we're trying to fix that. There will be some partial reverts to some of the buffs from last patch.
Good.
As well as some adjustments of other things as we go into the competitive scene, so that hopefully the mid game isn't as painful. Because right now the early game is actually pretty good. The mid game is pretty awful. And then the end game, unfortunately, there's like only a few comps that can survive that mid game to reach the end game and be pretty powerful. So let's dive right in and talk about these changes.
Yeah, last patch was not very good.
First up on the system side, again, as we're getting ready for 15, you're going to see changes that are coming towards that. First one here is all Radiant items have now been renamed to Radiant, the name of the item. Radiant Ginsu's Rageblade,
Huge.
Radiant Bramble Vest,
Huge.
things like that. It was fun, but it makes it really unintuitive and pretty difficult to talk about. So this is just one of those things that when it comes to simplifying the game, you know, when you call Radiant Void Staff, I can't even remember what the name of it was. So we're just simplifying this down as we move forward in the future. So yeah. And then if you don't pick an item on Stage 5 plus Carousel, it will now prioritize a completed item over the highest cost champion. Small quality of life change if you get like disconnected or something like that. Okay, and then Double Up. I'll try to be quick here because I know a lot of you aren't tuning in for Double Up, but Double Up, we're trying to get ready here, and we've kind of seen that the cannon has been pretty successful. We erred on the side of being a little more for fun, just to kind of see how that would land. And what we found was that 3-star forecasts were a little bit more common than we would have liked.
Very common.
So we're going to be taking a pretty big swing here to kind of change how the meta works with the cannon. So first off, the team cannon, the cooldown is now, instead of it being, you know, based on the star level, it's now based on the cost. So if you send a 1-cost unit, 3 turns. Same with 2, same with 3. And then 4 and 5 costs are actually 5 turns. So sending 4 and 5 costs will be a little bit longer. So you can send 1 cost pretty quickly. Now here's the big one. You can only send 1-star units.
That's
so
huge.
No more like using reinforcement to get a big 2-star and then sending it, or using a duplicator or things like that.
Yep.
You can only send 1 at a time. So someone can help you 1, maybe 2 copies of a 4-cost, but no longer like 3 or even more. So this is a pretty big nerf to like 3-starring 4-costs. We kind of want you to use the cannon pretty frequently on these 1-star units and not feel like you have to save all that bench space. And then we've also removed the duplicator gift armory option from the late game. And it's been replaced with 3 lesser duplicators. And then finally, the augment reinforcements is just gone.
Yeah, makes sense.
This augment kind of did some pretty silly things in that mode. So again, all of this in Double Up is aimed at having less 3-star forecasts. Because again, we're pretty happy with the early and mid game, but that late game kind of got pretty bad here. So Double Up players, let us know what you think. Should be hopefully a little bit healthier.
Any Double Up players in chat? It's actually a really big deal. I hosted a Double Up LAN like a month and a half ago, and the 3-star forecast wasn't as common at the high elo, but like anything below like the top challenger level, because people were denying each other, it was actually super duper common. So it might make the game mode like less for fun, and so a lot of people might not like this change. But I think that for like if they ever want Double Up to be like serious, like something that's like more popular than just like a casual mode, then I think they would want to make it so it's less like clowny and for fun. And I actually think Double Up is really fun. I don't know if you guys have played the game mode. A lot of you guys might judge Double Up because you played it years ago, but I'm pretty sure a lot of you who say Double Up bedge, I don't care about this. I mean, a lot of you guys are just spamming Lero Dan in chat. But if you guys are like spamming Bedge or whatever, I'm willing to wager that a lot of you haven't even played Double Up since they changed. It's actually pretty fun. And I think that it's actually close to being a pretty good game mode, believe it or not. Balance, specifically around augments and the prevalence of 3-star forecast is like a really big problem in double up. So I think this actually does address it.
All right, on the trait side, Cypher. Cypher is one of our high-risk traits, and, you know, high-risk traits are meant to be pretty fun. They have some pretty high peaks. They can have some lows if you miss. Generally, our competitive players are really good at optimizing these, though. And so because of that, at the absolute peak of play, they end up being a little strong. So for this patch, as we head into
Cypher nerf,
the Tactician's Crown, we're just going to pull that power down a little. So the base loss value, especially at Stage 2, is going from 16 to 13. Stage 3 from 20 to 18. Stage 4 barely matters. Most people, when they play Cypher, aren't doing Stage 4 anyway. And Stage 5 is the same.
Thumbs up for me.
This is intended to sort of... Basically, if you think about a Cypher player and the cash out they get, pretty normal play where you get it at like 2-1, 2-2, lost streak till about 3-7, and then cash it out. This will lower the value of what you got by about 1 or 2 tiers, especially if you didn't go pretty deep. So Cypher will be weaker in the Tactician's Crown. That is intentional. Executioner 4 and 5 get a small 5% crit chance buff. Not a lot of people playing Executioner 4 and 5. That being said, it's the final patch. We don't want to like swing really big here and have all of a sudden Rengar and Vex dominate. That's not the plan. So small buff there.
Okay.
All right, Exotech. As I said, the flat HP that 7 Exotech gets in the mid game just a little too out of control. The previous number was 240. We had buffed it to 300. We're going to go halfway in between. It's going to be 270. This is meant to be a nerf to 7 Exotech. So it'll be
meant to be a nerf.
And then whenever you're playing Exotech, everyone kind of dreaded Hollow Bow because it really only had one user, which is Varus, who's not really that stylish right now. So we're going to give the item 15% AD so that you at least will feel a little bit better if you end up putting it on Jhin or Zeri, so that hopefully Exotech is a little bit more playable instead of just, oops, these are I have a Hollow Bow, I can't play it anymore. So Nitro, very small buff here, but it does add up. 1 more HP per Chrome. So if you think about a T-Hex at 200, that's going to be 200 more HP. Again, small change here. There's some other buffs to the champions you'll see, but Nitro just a little better. I don't imagine this is going to swing the needle wildly, but should help it. And again, we're trying not to swing things pretty wildly given that it is a big competitive patch. Vanguard, it was 40 before. We buffed it to 48. We're going to go down to 45 here. Vanguard is a very good front line. We've seen now the shift from, it used to be 4 Vanguard, 4 Marksman, shifted to 6 Vanguard, 2 Marksman. Again, we're happy that 6 Vanguard's playable, but that mid game especially, because you can get those Vanguards online pretty early, and there's just so much health to burn through. So this will pull that back down a bit.
All right. Overall, good changes. I think I like when I put a check mark, it means like I agree or like I like the change. I think that Executioners, I don't like playing against Executioners personally, but it's like Executioner is just not very good right now. So I think it's definitely worth a buff to make sure that's actually more viable. The only question mark I have is over the Hollow Bow, just because 15 AD is not inconsequential, and so it's just one of those things where it might end up being like really good. But I mean, in theory, he's right, which is like, Hollow Bow is just pretty much a Varus item, so he's not wrong on that front. It could be that Hollow Bow is really good now. So all these are like in the right direction. Vanguard, I think it was 40 and it went to 48. Now it's at 45. It still might be really good, but they want 6 Vanguard to be playable. This might still mean that you just play 6 Vanguard, but now maybe late game, it still changes. Like 45% is still a lot. So it's still like an overall pretty big buff. But maybe it just won't be as overwhelming late game, mid game as it will be as it usually is. And the Cypher nerf is just good. So overall, good stuff.
On the champion side, Mundo, this nerf is not really intended to nerf the Gorilla comp. We're actually just shifting the power and the Zyra buff. These are intended to sort of balance each other out. Right now, if you're playing the Gorilla comp, people call it the Gorilla comp. It's the Mundo, Zyra, Seraphine, Alistar reroll. So much of the power is in Seraphine and Mundo, and if you get Zyra, it's almost like not really worth it. So Zyra's being buffed up to be a little bit better here, pretty much a 5% buff. But to compensate for that, Mundo's going to lose just a little bit of healing. Now, this isn't really the part of Mundo's kit that makes him that strong. He has really, really high health. He still hits really hard. This will just cut the healing a microscopic amount. Again, just wanted to make sure we didn't overbuff this comp too much. That's all this is really doing.
Okay.
Vi, this is the second Vanguard nerf. Right now, Vi, she's been kind of OP for a while now, especially at 1 and 2 star. You get a 2-star Vi with 1 or 2 tank items in the early game, and we'll see you at stage 4, right? Like, she can get you the whole way there. She's often better than things like Rost. So Vi is going to get a little bit of a shield nerf at 1 and 2 star. And then just calling it out, even though it's mostly just us following framework, she is going to get a nerf at 4 or buff at 4 star. So if you somehow get Vi 4, she shields a tiny bit more. Cool. You know.
Yeah. Okay, so 1 cost. I don't know how big of a nerf this is because healing HP ratio. I mean, I'm going to pull up Mundo real quick just so we understand a little bit of his ability. So Mundo, his HP, gain 30% more max HP from all sources, flex healing HP, then deal physical damage to his current target. Wait, what? So healing HP ratio 5. I don't see the 5% anywhere. Is there another aspect of his kit? Let me go to another website. Mundo. Gain 30% more max HP, flex, healing HP, and dealing physical damage. Oh, it's the actual the bottom part. Heal 5% plus that. Oh, okay. So if he's losing 3% and this guy gets to like 7 to like 8,000 in the good case scenarios, that's like a few hundred HP. That's pretty significant. But they're trying to also buff Zyra to be better. So I guess like if it works the way that they're imagining it, I can get behind the idea of the buff and nerf. I guess it's like a trade-off. And he's right. Zyra 3 is not particularly super amazing. It also could very much be that if Mundo is not sufficient as a frontline, then you just play Zyra Seraphine with something else. Like maybe we just don't play Mundo anymore, and maybe you play Vanguards. Maybe it's Zyra Seraphine Vanguards. You know what I mean? Like Mundo is a great frontliner if you can get him rolling, but if he sucks now because this HP ratio is too big, then you just play Zyra Seraphine and Silas, and then you reroll that instead. This Vi nerf is actually justified. People actually know that Vi is OP, right? She's definitely OP.
Cool. You know. On the 2-cost side, Graves definitely, that small buff we gave him 2 patches ago made him shine. He can be pretty frustrating. Giving him a very tiny nerf here where his projectiles will do, instead of 35% of his AD, 33% of his AD. So pretty small here. The bigger nerf here is that Graves' interaction with Titanic Hydra and Wit's End was kind of out of control. If you got these artifacts, they were pretty insane because they were triggering 5 times per auto. Yeesh. So they're only going to trigger 1 time per auto. So we definitely expect this to make these items quite a bit worse on Graves. That's not really intended to be 5 times. So expect those artifacts to be worse than Graves. And so some of the Graves high rolls you've seen with these artifacts should be significantly weaker. Shyvana, very small buff here. Again, this is part of the Nitro package. Just a little bit more health gain per cast. Such a small amount here, 5%. Don't think it's going to change too much. Vayne, mostly unplayed and meant to kind of help Slayer. I don't know if this is going to make Vayne reroll meta or anything like that, but even if you've just got her a secondary in Anima Squad or Slayer comp, she'll be hitting a little harder here. So some more AD for Vayne.
Actually, I think this Vayne's a question mark. I'm not entirely sure. So just to go over it, okay, so I actually think this is a good change. This is actually healthy. This actually makes us so that Graves isn't so artifact gated. And like now there are good artifacts on him, but maybe Titanic Hydra and Winston aren't just going to be mega. Like if you have actually seen some of the stats behind this, it's like minus 1.x. It's actually in an insane delta on things like Titanic Hydra and Winston. So it's like way too good. And if you don't know, this is delta, and this just implies that just opening this up already increases your placement by a factor. It's like way too big of a standard deviation of it. That being said, because of how tight he is to artifacts, he actually doesn't, I think, need a nerf. I think this is already a massive nerf to him. I actually think Graves is like okay without artifacts. I've talked about this a couple times. So I don't think you need him to get nerfed. Now, that being said, they did buff Executioners. So it could be another like small reason could be that they're buffing Executioners. They don't want necessarily to change too much, but I actually think Graves is like super manageable now. They did nerf Exotech HP and they did nerf Vanguard, so it's also possible that's like they feel like Graves is doing too good and they nerf frontline, so Graves would just run over everything. But he seems more magical to me. This is not a huge nerf though, right? It's 35 to 33, so it's not like the biggest nerf ever. But it's like one of those things. That's why I guess I was like, I don't even think he needs it personally. Shyvana, I mean, Shyvana is just nothing crazy. And then Vayne actually is like kind of playable right now, so it's like fine. This actually might make Vayne a better 2-cost reroll. The more I think about it, the more I'm okay with it, because 2-cost reroll is not very good in the meta. Is there any 2-cost reroll that people are excited about besides Graves? Like in general? Not really, right? There might be like very situational TF, very situational Veigar, LeBlanc, Cypher, but like it's like LeBlanc. It's actually kind of like 3-cost reroll because it's Galio, Draven plus LeBlanc. You're not like playing for a 2-cost reroll. So there's like some that are like, yeah, I could, but overall giving more options is good, I think. So I'm a fan of it. It makes Rageblade better. But
on the 3-cost side, the only champion changing is Fiddlesticks. We're pretty happy with Fiddlesticks' damage output. The problem is, if you put him in the backline, it takes him forever to get back to his next cast. He has to do those autos. So this is meant to buff like a normal techie fiddle or even like a bruiser fiddle you put in the second row, maybe even something like a sniper's focus fiddle so that he can get back to casting quicker without just cranking his damage and healing. We didn't really want to go that route. So if you're playing him in the front line and having him like drain tank, he's not going to be any stronger. But by having some more attack speed, he can get back to casting quicker.
Cool. Like it.
Annie, this is meant to be a small nerf towards the peak of the amp comp. You'll see there's some other amp changes as well, but certainly 5 amp has been kind of the like lost streak. If you can get to 5 amp and then turn it online, it's pretty hard to beat. And so as we were doing sims and trying to balance this out, Annie's mini fireball, which is the thing that scales with amp, is going to be a little less damage here. Cho'Gath, unfortunately, is kind of like, we've really struggled with this guy, I'm not going to lie. It's like, he gets played in 6 Boombot comps because he's a Boombot, but you're not like really super excited to have him as your tank. It's not like 6 Bruisers really doing a lot right now. We're seeing mostly Vanguard front lines. We basically aren't really seeing much Bruiser front line other than 2. Maybe you slot in 4 later when you hit the Kobuko, but you don't really play Cho'Gath, and so Cho'Gath is going to get 100 HP. And remember, this affects
it's a big buff
because his spell is based off his base HP when he starts. So this is actually a pretty chunky buff to Cho'Gath. I would expect this to hopefully help Bruisers, give another 4-cost tank besides Leona. And I expect this actually to be one of the bigger changes in the meta. Now, that being said, I think I've said that like 2 or 3 times so far this set, and it hasn't really come to pass. So maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah.
But do keep an eye out on Cho'Gath. If you're a competitive player, I would definitely be at least practicing this comp and seeing if it's really changed much. Misfortune. After the Dynamo nerf, Dynamo has kind of fallen out of favor a little bit. The Syndicate buffs did help. So we're giving Misfortune a tiny bit more. The big thing with Misfortune is you get her, she's another one of those, like, she does okay in the mid game, but as stage 5 and stage 6 roll around and people start hitting their Zacs and their Kobukos and their Garens and stuff like that, she just falls off a cliff. She just can't output the damage to compete with that. And so we're going to give her 3 more AD to make that spell hit a little bit harder. Not a big swing here, but should be a small buff. And then one other thing is, as we were playing and noticing, is that 7 Syndicate Misfortune is actually pretty bad. A lot of 7 Syndicate's early power was because you would 7 Syndicate off the Twisted Fate that you were rerolling early on in the set. And 7 Syndicate Twisted Fate is nutty. He gets like whole double card thing, multiplies his damage pretty insanely. 7 Misfortune, not so much. So she's going to get a small buff there. It only changes things if you're playing 7 Syndicate, but calling it out.
Oh, he hasn't gone through all the 4-cost changes. Okay, I guess because I've drawn stuff here. Overall, thumbs up on the Fiddlesticks change. I think Fiddlesticks in general is just a synergy bot. The Fiddlesticks reroll, the stats on it look good, but that's only because it's like complete survivorship bias. It actually doesn't even look that good if you think about the average 3-cost reroll spot. So Fiddlesticks could use some love, and it's nice. Attack speed is really impactful for someone like him that just wants to cast. Nerfing Amp Annie is actually good, so that way the scaling of Amp is not bad, but you can still probably play her in Golden Ox. The problem is that Annie doesn't really shine in a lot of things outside of Amp right now. You're not really like playing Annie in anything besides Amp. So because Golden Ox is actually kind of falling out of favor for 6. You actually cut Annie a lot in Graves, and when you play vertical Golden Ox, sometimes you're not even necessarily prioritizing 6 Golden Ox all the time anymore because the jump up from 4 to 6 is so small that you're willing to make cuts. And a lot of times, based off like the way your itemization is flowing, you might cut Annie and Alistar or something like that, or Graves and Annie or something like that, because you need frontline. So it's like so Annie actually kind of doesn't really have that much of a role. So it's a little bit of a bummer, but it's okay, because I think the amp line honestly just needs to. I don't want it to die, but I kind of just like, I'm just tired of it, man. I'm honestly tired of it. We haven't gotten to it. I kind of want Zach. I just need to see something else. It's just too much of the same like 8 to 9 units every game, and I'm ready to see something else. Speaking of seeing something else, I think this buff to Cho'Gath is massive on paper, and it's about time, because I feel like okay, the problem with Cho'Gath is that it's like if you can't kill him, you might literally just be attacking Cho'Gath the entire time. But that is Leona already, and that is like 7 Exotech and everything else. We've kind of already endured that. It just feels like it's time for Cho'Gath to actually shine. So he already could be good. There's people in chat saying like we see it even doing well in Tactician's Crown if you have the good setup for it, whether it's boombots or like, for example, I think Weishin played it in some kind of Exotech setup, or was it something else? But like it's definitely something viable you can play around right now, but you kind of need like extreme circumstances. But doesn't it tell you everything that yesterday a player needed to go for first? The player needed to go for first yesterday. I believe it was Choi Yuna. He took Pandora's bench on 2-1, and his strategy was to re-roll Cho'Gath. That's literally his out. He said, I need to play for first. My strategy is to take Pandora's bench and re-roll Cho'Gath. And he hit it. He actually did it, and he won the game, and he went first, and he qualified for day 3 by 1 point. That was literally his out, because that just tells you everything you need to know about how little people play it. Also, the irony is that someone actually that game was playing Fiddlesticks reroll and needed Cho'Gath. So somehow he was contested, but he hit anyways. However, I don't even think that's that bad of a plan, because Cho'Gath is so undesirable. He also hit Z3. Okay, yeah, that part is true too. But like he basically targeted the 3 least popular forecasts, and he was correct on that front. MF, I actually think Mort said a lot of smart things about MF. He specifically talked about like her drop off late game and how important it is to curve with Dynamo to play on tempo. Just like really smart observations about MF falling off late game. The 7 Syndicate buffs I don't really have much of a comment on. I'm sure 7 Syndicate sounds like it should be strong, so overall good stuff.
Nico, this is meant to help Street Demon a little bit. Also meant to help Amp on the tankiness side, not necessarily the damage side, because again, you'll see some damage nerfs. But Nico just also not really living up to things like Leona, so getting a small amount of spell shield heal. It's a very tiny buff, but Nico should be a little tankier. You should be a little happier to play Nico. Vex has mostly fallen off at this point. Again, Vex is another champion that, like, how does Vex get through 6 Vanguard, or how does Vex get through, some of those big Exotech front lines? She really can't. So Vex is just going to get a small amount of damage here. And remember, this is actually just the main damage. This isn't the AoE. This isn't all of her damage. It's just like her ability to kind of get through her primary target. And then finally, Ziggs, same thing. We're trying to get a lot more of the forecasts here. Generally, a Tactician's Crown where a lot more of the forecasts are playable is definitely a better Tactician's Crown to watch. So Vex gets buffed and Ziggs gets buffed as well. Again, none of these are like giant buffs, but enough that hopefully there's more forecast lines to be played as we head to the Tactician's Crown.
No complaints. All these forecasts are embarrassments whenever you like rely on them too much. Actually, Nico's probably like Vex is like slightly underrated, but that's only because she only can shine if you have very, very specific things. When I say underrated, I mean it's because some people think she's completely unplayable. She's not, but she is extremely narrow with when you can play her. Versus just playing Amp. So it's a good buff. And then Nico, I mean, Nico's just a joke, man. You just play her as like you just play her as a synergy bot. She's actually I think she's even a more disappointing tank than Cho'Gath in terms of like identity. I actually don't, a lot of people don't even know half of Nico's ability, which is that she actually has CC built into her kit, and people don't even know that. There's people that there's going to be people in chat who hear this for the first time, but Nico actually has built-in CC. That's how like little people like know and play her and stuff like that. And then Ziggs, I mean, this guy's a meme at this point. But like buffing the damage should definitely help, and maybe buffing Nico and Ziggs makes the strategist line. A long time ago, at the beginning of the set, there was actually a strategist line that you could play. There was actually a strategist line you could play at PBE, played around like strategist and just like Nico, and you played like 4 cyber boss strategists. Maybe this build comes back. It could be that they just like buffed all that stuff. Did they buff anything else around it? I don't think so, but they buffed Echo last patch. It might be better now. Who knows?
Finally, on the 5-cost side, Renekton. If you get 6 Rapid Fire Renekton, pretty solid. If you play normal Renekton, he's okay, not great. So we're going to give him 100 more HP so that he can be a little more durable as well. Hopefully, melee Renekton ends up feeling a little bit better, and he's not just a 6 Rapid Fire bot or things like that. All right, Samira, this is a pretty big nerf. The base Samira, so if you're playing her in like 7 Street Demon, she'll be a little better, a tiny bit. But if you're playing her in Amp, she's going to be a decent chunk worse here. You're going to have a bit less damage from Samira. Samira's are wiping the board. Now, before anyone comments and says, hey, I notice you're nerfing Amp and you're nerfing Samira and Annie, but you're not really hitting the main thing, which is Yuumi. We know, like, Yuumi is a good part of the mid game, and that's the thing. We don't want Amp to necessarily be entirely reliant on, like, having to hit that Samira. It's still going to be a big bump, but we want, like, a Yuumi to be playable in the mid game, and that's a good thing. So we're leaving the power in Yuumi right now, pulling just a little bit out of Annie and Samira to try to get it in line with other late game comps. And then the other big nerf that I think hits every end-game comp here is I think we've all come to know Zach as the guy who grows, and if you get him up to like 30, 40, 50, or if you're Wajan Iverson, 120 bloblets, this guy's insane. This guy does so much damage. It's not that we don't mind him being tanky. That's kind of his job, but like when that same tanky Zach with 6,000 health is also just deleting backliners, it's a little much. So we're buffing baseline Zach's damage, but the AP per blob is getting cut in half. This is a big nerf. You can see that, like, you know, if you have a 10 blob Zach, you'll be doing around the same amount of damage. But after that, it's going to start getting pulled down. Zach shouldn't quite be carrying the damage of all the endgame comps. Really don't like it when he's literally #1 in damage with 3 defensive items. So this should pull Zach down.
All right, so Zach and Samira nerfed. Amp just got nerfed 3 times on 3 really impactful units. So is Amp dead? Probably. Are we not going to see Samira at all? Well, the thing about Samira, the thing about Samira that's actually kind of tricky is that she is very much tied to her trades. She is so unplayable outside of Street Demon, Vertical, and Amp. They did technically buff the Vertical. They buffed Nico. So maybe you see Samira. Maybe 7 Street Demon is fine again if you cap with Samira. But man, I think that I think the 5 costs to set are generally pretty fire. I think that they did a really good job with the 5 costs. I do think Samira is probably the one they have to go back on and be like, man, I think we maybe tied it a little bit too much to her trades. Because if you hit Samira 2 now, let's say you play Birthday Present and you get Samira 2 now, aren't you just like so sad? What? It's just like it's actually like such a bummer. So I feel like that's like the big miss with that. Renekton. Is Renekton already like fine? I feel like I guess he didn't. I guess my opinion is that he didn't need the buff. Probably it's because Renekton 2 is actually kind of good. So maybe this just makes Renekton 2 insane, and now Renekton 2 might be like the 5 cost carry you think about if you can get that. But I guess Renekton 1 sucks if based off their metric. Because like I think a lot of stats might have been affected by people who were on Renekton 1 and itemized around him. But Renekton 2 is not bad. He actually can really pop off. And then Zach, he's had his time. I still think Zach might actually be still playable. The people might think that this means that Zach is unplayable. It just means that you can't just like. It just means that fewer games are just going to be determined by Zach blobs, and it's more competitive, which is good. Because at a certain point, they hit 20 blobs, you just know you can't kill it. Like 20, 25, 30 blobs, Zach 2, you just know you can't kill it. So you just like think you lose the game. So I think he's right.
All right, on the augment side, again, mostly aiming at the Tactician's Crown. There's certain augments we've left in the game, kind of like knowing that they'd be a little risky throughout the thing. But for Tactician's Crown, maybe it's time to pull the trigger on these. So Last Stand is going to lose 50 health. It won't be quite as swingy. Luden's Echo is going to get a small buff here. So Augment's kind of underperforming, but not by a ton. So small buff here. Memory Bank no longer offered on 3-2. This one's weird. It just feels like you're behind when you take it on 3-2. Overclocked. This is the amp one that says whenever you have 3 items on an amp, they gain 1 amp. This augment's weird. It's really hard to play. It just didn't really work out.
Yeah, agreed. It's like bad binary.
So
or whatever.
it's like Weirdly, if you like somehow have a 5-item start and have a Nidalee strong start, you can kind of play it, but even then it's not that great. So we're just going to pull it out for now. Spare parts, man, this one's such a shame. This is such a cool augment, but something happened last patch that caused it to bug. Right now, if you take this augment, and a lot of players have reported this, the turret just doesn't fire its spell. And so it's actually just an awful, awful augment. And unfortunately, we weren't able to get the bug fixed in time, given the other things we had to do for like set 15.
Sad.
So we had to disable the augment. It kind of sucks because it's generally a fun augment. It hasn't really had its time to shine because Nitro's kind of fallen off on the back half of the set, which is really a shame, but needs to be disabled.
I didn't know that.
Thorn-plated armor. This augment's just a little too good in the early game. So for now, we're going to cut the healing a small amount. And then finally is Think Fast. Yes, Think Fast is around. We brought it back for fun. It was great. I don't think we want the Tactician's Crown decided by somebody who got Think Fast, different ping. It just does not sound like a good idea. So we are going to disable Think Fast for this patch. It will not be a part of the Tactician's Crown. So there you go.
Man, good changes overall. It's less than I thought it would be. Again, I think one thing that's really striking, I think I say this about every patch notes run now, but I always feel like they could change more augments, but they don't change much. So the augment data must be fine. I didn't realize spare parts was bug. I haven't clicked it. I haven't seen people get the bug, unfortunately. So that's a good disable. Overclock is awkward, so it's good. Thornplate armor, the reason why it performs so well is because of the AD heavy meta. Thornplate armor only is as good as how many AD players are in the lobby. I mean, part of it was that also it was just good tempo early. And so it's just one thing to note is that it also could have been not nerfed if the meta started shifting more towards AP. They buff Vex, they buff Ziggs, they buff Street Demons. It's possible that it was like, it's actually a fine augment. It's just that the reason why it was doing so much better was because 6 people in each lobby this patch are playing AD minimum. So that's big reason why Thornplate armor is doing well. I'm not saying about it not. It's fine. It's like performing well. So I guess it's like more of a question mark. And Think Fast, man. Rip Bozo. This augment is just silly, man. It completely breaks TFT. And also someone made a really good point where that it's actually also a ping issue on the World Championship. People are playing like at LANs like around the world. So you have like 5 players here, 6, 7 players here, 3 players here, right? 4 players. But if the server is like hosted by these 5 players in like NA gets the best ping but the worst time zone, then these guys have an advantage for Think Fast over these players. So it's just not fair. So it's just smart. We had our fun. Think Fast. Rip Bozo. You won't be missed.
And then on the bug fix side, just 2 small things here. But PvE rounds and double up can no longer have 0 bonus orbs. This is a pretty rare thing that could happen, but just calling it out here.
Okay.
And then fixed a bug where 4-star Shyvana gained a little less health than intended. When we were balancing Shyvana, we just noticed her 4-star number was outside of framework, so it like buffs her about 10%. So if you ever get a 4-star Shyvana, grats. And there you go. That's the patch. So
okay, so that's the entire patch. There's actually like a handful of more bugs that they never fixed, but I guess they couldn't get to it in time, and they're honestly focused on set 15 at this point. If you guys don't know, set 15 is actually coming out in like 3 weeks. Yay! Next week is regionals. 2 weeks after that is worlds. 48 after that is set 15. So I did see that he makes an announcement here, so let's go ahead and take a look.
Cool. Good luck to everybody in the Tactician's Crown. Cyber Study has been a lot of fun. Like I said, there will be one more patch, which is 14.8, where we'll be a little more loose, but yeah, should be a lot of fun. One other thing to note here is this is a 3-week patch because Riot has its usual summer break.
Summer break.
A week off, so this will be a 3-week patch. But overall, we hope this will be a healthier meta. So there you go. That's it for the balance stuff. If that's what you came here for, you can leave now. Now, one other thing I have to cover real quick here. This is a bit separate from balance and live. A bit of an update on my situation, actually. Some of you know earlier I took a break for 3 weeks, kind of rejuvenated, kind of came back. And I'm not going anywhere as far as that goes, but something's happened at Riot where Riot's a big company and there's lots of things going on at the company. And I'm a pretty senior designer. I think they call it senior director. You know, I'm pretty good at solving pretty tough design problems. And I have been asked by some of the super high up people at Riot to go help with a different design problem for a short while. And so for starting July 7th, for about 3 months, I am going to go off the TFT team for a bit to go solve some other design problems that need to be solved.
Oh,
My hope is that I'm just there to help people solve these. Maybe you'll never even hear about it, just things I can go help with. But as I've kind of grown in my reach, I need to go help with these things. But what that means is for 3 months, I'm not going to be a part of the TFT team. I'm not really going to be working on live or sets or anything like that. I've set the team up for success. I've got people like Giovanni and Kent who are going to be taking care of things. So I'm not going to be around as much as far as on the actual team. Now, what that means for my stream is I'm still going to stream each weekend, but kind of as a player. If 15-1, 15-2 PBE stuff, I'm not going to be around to do that. The team's got it. They're going to do well. So I'm not going anywhere. Things you can expect. I'm going to do the 14-8 rundown. And then I'm also going to work with Sloan to do the PBE rundown for set 15. I know he's pretty excited to do that, and he can't wait to talk about the set he's been leading. But after that, for set 15, patch rundowns will stop because it's weird for me to talk about things I don't have context on. Like, I'm really supposed to be spending 100% of my time focused on these other design problems, not TFT.
Oh.
Now, again, I still want to play the game and stuff like that. But so this is sort of a call out to anyone in the community that for set 15, if you can, we saw this a bit when I took that 3-week break, but if you guys can do patch rundowns and things like that, you should set up to do that. Because like I said, it's really weird for me to come in and be like, here's what the team was thinking, that's weird. That's weird. So I'm still going to stream as a player for these 3 months. And I do want to also highlight that it's a short-term thing, right? Like, they've asked me to go solve these problems. I'm going to go do it. And
that's what Dad said.
I'm pretty excited for a lot of what TFT has in the future.
Uh-oh.
There's some stuff I've set up I want to see finish. There's some future set stuff I think is really, really great. So I'm not going anywhere. I love TFT.
He's gone, guys.
Thing, but
it's over.
I do got to help solve these problems. So I'll still be around. But yeah. So like I said, on your end as a player, this shouldn't change much. The game should still be great. You're still going to get your sets, your patches.
It shouldn't change
all your
very
cool
much.
Events, stuff like that.
Oh, man.
Because, again, I've been helping train people for years, and now we've got people who could do that. So it's more just if you guys come to me and you're like, why did this balance change happen? I'm going to be like, no, I'm just not in those conversations right now. So, so there you go. All right. Hopefully you guys enjoy. I'm excited to see how the Tactician's Crown plays out. See who makes it, see who wins this year. It's going to be a lot of fun. So, yeah.
All right. That's it.
That's going to do it for me.
All right. So Mortdog is leaving TFT temporarily to work on another project. Is it the MMO? No, because we know that the MMO is never going to release, so why even work on it? It's a dead end. Don't do it. Don't go to the MMO. That game is cooked. As is potentially set 15. There's going to be some people who see this and say, yes, finally. I hated 6 Vanguard. I hated Exotech. I hated XYZ. They're pointing at all the flaws. Mortdog is the best balancer of TFT at Riot. And we know this because we've also seen other people take over when he hasn't done it because he moved on to other things. And it got really off the rails. Set 12, set 9.5. These are sets that have some of the worst balancing in modern TFT recent history. And those are all periods of time where Mortdog was not working on live balance because he was working on other things. Instead, those instances were pretty bad. And so Mortdog had to re-step in, right? He had to actually swoop in to save the day type of thing. So you don't know how good you have until it's gone. This is not a Mortdog glaze session necessarily. It's more about me expressing concern based off historical patterns that we've come to establish, which is when Mort is not working on live balance, it's generally not been very good. Now, the reason they could have gotten better, right? He said that I trained these people, they should be better. The reason why Mort is good is because he's been working on TFT for a long time. I believe it's because he's been there since the beginning, basically. He wasn't there at the very, very beginning, but Mortdog's basically been here since the beginning. He's seen all of these issues over time. The challenge is there's a lot of people that work onto TFT, but maybe they've only started working from 2-3 years ago as opposed to 5 years ago. There's lessons that we've learned along the way, both in recent and old, that Mortdog has the experience to understand, okay, here's a problem, right? If you look at the patch, for example, there's a lot of people that might get the problem right, but the solution wrong. That's a big part about balance that people don't understand. Yes, there is a problem with, for example, MF being weak, but can we figure out what the solution is? And a lot of people might be just like saying, they might be just like throwing darts on the board. Like, okay, I know the problem is that Cho'Gath sucks. I mean, to be fair, Cho'Gath's a bad example. They missed on Cho'Gath all set. I know that these units suck. I know these things are too overpowered, but what's the actual solution? That's where a lot of people get it wrong. A lot of people can recognize that this is like too good and I think usually his best attribute as a balance designer in terms of like what he approaches is that he usually can identify core issues of what things feel bad and what things are too good at. Part of it's because he spends a lot of time talking to players, listening to streams, and being immersed in it. And the other is just him playing the game himself. So that part I'm pretty worried about because I've lived through TFT patches and sets without Mort touching balance, and that's a really big deal. Mort is right. He's one of the most senior people at this, like at the design level at Riot, like one of, and he's handling live balance like a lot. I don't think he's doing everything. He's definitely not doing everything. Tim does a lot, and I think there's other people that work on it as well. But like he's doing a lot of it, and it's like it kind of tells you a lot about how hard it is to balance TFT when one of the very, very top level designers of the entire team is still working on live balance. TFT is extremely hard to balance. Extremely hard to balance. That's so much so. It's so much so that it can't be beneath Mort because he's the best at it. But you know, part of it is that can he train somebody else to take up that mantle? And as far as I know, things have shifted around. So I think one of my old buddies from Hearthstone, Chalky, came over from Blizzard to Riot to oversee things like live balance. I don't think he's on it anymore. We know that Iniko and all the like and some of the challenger players that they hired in the past also worked on balance, but Iniko is now working on future projects. I don't think he works on live balance anymore. A lot of people have touched it and tried. It's really, really hard, man. And these are challenger level players. People say just hire the challengers. It shouldn't be that hard. They've done that, and it's led to terrible balance states. A lot of people can't figure out the solutions, man, let alone catch the problems. Hire Soju. That sounds like the worst possible solution, man. Because the guy just says, forget it, I'm just sacking, I'm going next set, and then he just queues up Valorant. That sounds like a terrible solution. It's probably the least rewarding thing to work on. That's also true, because the thing is with balance is you get it mostly right. How many times have the patch been like, actually, like the patch feels awful, but it's actually only like 2 things off? I would actually argue that we've been there like more times than not. Like on average, almost every patch that feels bad is actually like kind of close. There's been many instances that in recent times where it feels like if they just fix like these 2 things, the patch would actually be pretty good. And that's the difficulty about balance. It feels like you get almost everything right, but if you're off by like 1 or 2 things, the patch can feel terrible. We're in that right now. I think this past patch was pretty bad. I didn't like it, but it was mainly because of like 2 things. It was Vanguard and Exotech. But I mean, I guess like there's other things too. They need to buff certain things, and they're trying to tackle them. Set 13 was balanced, and people were still shitting on Riot. Yeah, true. But like but they weren't shitting on it for balance reasons. They were shitting on it for design reasons. People hate 6 costs. That's different. Good patches are very well praised. They are. It's arguable that we should have stayed closer to the Dynamo patch than we were to the most recent patch. I hope this next patch fixes a lot of problems, because I'm not gonna lie, this is probably the patch I've been least enthusiastic to play, just because I just really think it's a boring patch relative to the others. It's probably because 2 patches ago I was actually playing a lot of TFT even off stream. This patch is like I'm really pulling teeth to try to even convince myself to play. But that also might be because I'm just burned out on 14. I want 15 to come pretty soon. So I still enjoy aspects of it. It's just not as fun. But maybe next patch kind of revives a little bit of that, about that. Mort said set 15 is the juice.
I'm getting Mortdog again.
No, that's not what I heard. I heard set 16 is the juice. And now I'm like very much convinced of it if Mort isn't on it for 3. All I'm saying is TFT without Mort in this immediate future. I'm not convinced enough to say that TFT will be as good or better without Mort. I can't say that yet, but I can say one thing is that TFT without Mort for 3 months is a weaker product. So hopefully that won't be the case. You know what? This is what we have to do. You know why Riot made this decision? It clicked. Riot made this decision because TFT is doing really well. Believe it or not, and I'm going to full cam for this. Believe it or not, TFT is actually one of Riot's shining jewels at the moment. TFT is actually doing really well. It's the player base is growing a lot. I know a lot of people like to think that TFT is a small niche thing. It's really not. It's growing. It's expanding in multiple markets, not just one. Like look at the explosion in Vietnam. Korea is exploding. It's still growing in all parts of the world. And TFT has a lot. It's financially doing very well also. And so by all metrics, it's like a game that Riot is proud of, because if you talk about League of Legends, what's like the #1 topic across everything with League of Legends? It's the decline, right? People are like, Arcane came out, but I don't want to recommend League. Everyone talk about the esports viewership, everything like that. They're just like yapping. They're greed with their skins, all these different problems with like work culture or whatever. Like they just like complain. But TFT is like a shining beacon in the macro, right? There's problems obviously on the ground floor of like a lot of small things, especially if you follow competitive. But TFT is doing great by all metrics, especially in a time when the game industry is looking to cut programs, cut spending, fire devs, hire more AI artists, right? All this different stuff. TFT is growing, is expanding, is doing great. Fantastic. They think TFT is doing so well. They're like, we can pull Mortdog and have him work on other projects. So if Set 15 is so bad, what we're hoping for is that Set 15 isn't okay. If Set 15 is so bad, Mortdog is forced to come back and he can't go back for 3 months. Huh? So we know what to do then. The play would be Set 15 launches so terribly, it goes so awfully, players are so mad that Mortdog has to get pulled back off the project and he can come back onto TFT. Yeah? So if we all just like, maybe Set 15 is actually okay, but if we just complain and we're so miserable and we hate it, Dad has no choice but to come back from his cigarette run. So complain I need you guys to complain even louder. I think you guys who post like balance wine threads on the daily, I need you to 5x those numbers. I need you to be hate watching TFT more than ever before in chat. I need you guys to be shit posting like crazy, and Mortdog will be forced to return.